panel are in the room right now. So if you hear your name being called, kindly just raise your hand so we can confirm your presence and shortly hand over to the moderator. Me Mapulao Mokwena, Director of Infrastructure, Sadc Secretariat Regional, are you with us? Me Mokwena? Tabiso Florence Pape, our moderator, thank you for confirming your presence a little bit earlier this afternoon. We appreciate it and we acknowledge your presence, my lady. Teddy Luamba Muba, Minister of Energy and Water Resources from the Democratic Republic of Congo. If you could just raise your hand, thank you so much. Honorable Mohlomi Moleko, Minister of Natural Resources and Acting Minister of Energy from Lesotho. Ntate Moleko, Fauka Tsoletsa Letsoho, ke a leboha ntate. Honorable Ibrahim Matola, Minister of Energy from Malawi. Honorable Estavao Tomas Rafael Pale, Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy from Mozambique. Honorable Makozo Chikote, Minister of Energy from Zambia. Thank you so much, as well as Honorable July G. Moyo, Minister of Energy and Power Development from Zimbabwe. Well, seems like we're all systems a go. So at this moment, it's my pleasure to say we kick off the ministerial high-level policy deliberations driving policy synergies for a sustainable energy transition in the Sadc region. Please welcome a lady who has been looking forward to engaging with you since earlier this afternoon. And as I receive you, dear moderator, I wish to just remind you that our Honorable Kenewendo has extended a sincere apology, and she has delegated the handsome honor of joining your delegation to her Deputy Permanent Secretary, DPS Energy, Mr. Nchena Mutebe. Thank you so much for being here with us, Nchena. Ladies and gentlemen, please receive our moderator, Ms. Tabiso Florence Pape.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As I have already been introduced, my name is Tabiso Florence Pape, and I am from Corporate Sustainability Reporting television program. We broadcast weekly on Botswana Television, DSTV, channel 290. We are a program that brings to light sustainability, ESG, and advisory discussions. We showcase initiatives and the impact that we are all making from a private sector perspective, international organizations, NGOs, and CSOs to drive sustainable development across the region or even locally here in Botswana. With that, I would like to take this opportunity to invite our honorable panelists. And I'll start with our host country, our Deputy Permanent Secretary, Re Chikoto. Sorry if I didn't get your name correctly there. And I would like to move to Honorable Teddy Luamba Mumba, Minister of Energy and Water Resources from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Honorable Mohlomi Moleko, Minister of Natural Resources and Acting Minister of Energy, Lesotho. Honorable Ibrahim Matola, Minister of Energy from Malawi. Honorable Estavao Thomas Rafael Pale, Minister of Minerals, Energy, and from Mozambique, sorry about that. Honorable Makoza Chikote, Minister of Energy from Zambia. And lastly, Honorable July G. Moyo, Minister of Energy and Power Development from Zimbabwe. I would like to highlight before we start our session that in the interest of time, I won't be asking any follow-up questions, and I'll give that space for Q&A, just so that all of us can engage and have different perspectives where energy efficiency and security is concerned.
As you settle in with your panelists, Tabiso, and your panelists, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping there. Support team, looks like we're missing an extra seat here. So thank you so much for making your way with our moderator's seat. Otherwise, though, you're doing fantastic. Florence, back to you.
Welcome, our honorable ministers. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Let me try to position myself.
Sincere apologies once again, Mayor Tabiso Florence Pape. As I'm sure you're aware, my lady, we are to have a scene setting, a due apology. We've just been informed that there shall be a video in replacement of your intended scene setter, Mayor Mapolao Mokoena. A due apology once again, but thank you for your understanding. Technical team, over to you with the presentation scene setting.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, to make sure that our panel is a fruitful one, kindly receive to the podium the Senior Program Officer, Energy Directorate of Infrastructure at the Sadc, Southern African Development Community, Mr. Moses Ndlamele, to come and set the scene and the scenario for us. Kindly, let's give him a round of applause.
But I don't see. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me align myself to the protocol that was set earlier on by our principals, starting with His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Advocate Duma Gideon Boko. Honorable Ministers, I've been assigned by Sadc Secretariat, especially the Director, Ms. Mapolao Mokoena, who could not be with us here, to other pressing commitments. And in this regard, please accept her apologies. And of course, even the ES could not be with us this afternoon because of those pressing assignments at the Sadc Secretariat. So allow me just to briefly present this presentation to you. I hope where you are seated, you will be able to see the screen in front of you. The presentation outline will include the Sadc introduction overview, which you are all aware of, the existing energy sector frameworks and instruments, the Sadc energy institutions, and the reporting structures, of which you are part of that structure in terms of decision-making processes, as well as the conclusions and the way forward. We are all aware that Sadc started way back as a Sadc Coordination Conference institution with WC before it became the SADC as a development community, as a regional economic community. And we have member states of running now to 16. And with Comoros, who are the last one to join, population is around 390 million. The installed capacity when it comes to energy is about 80 gigawatts, and the peak demand is plus or minus 50 gigawatts. But the challenges are there in terms of availability. The main instrument or the master plan that we are working within now with the regional indicative strategic development plan 2020 to 2030 and its vision 2050 of Sadc. We normally present this RSDP as like a structure, like this hall that we are in. The foundation of this structure is about the peace, security, and the good governance of which most of you are all aware. Then we have the pillars. The pillar number 2 is the one that we are here discussing or meeting today or this week about. It's about infrastructure development in support of regional integration. There are other pillars, of course, but that the middle pillar is the one that's more critical in our sector. Yes, as I just indicated, there's a pillar on, there's a foundation, it's about peace and security. Pillar 2 is infrastructure. We have the pillar 1 on industrialization, development, and market integration. Then when you come to our sector, that's energy. We have a master plan, regional infrastructure development master plan, and in the energy subsector, especially for the theme that we are here a meeting today or this week about, it's about on renewable energy and energy strategy and action plan. Our colleagues will be here to distribute some of this strategic plan. Then the other one is on regional energy access strategy and action plan of 2020. This is aimed to increase the access to energy by 2030 to reach universal access. We are very happy that some countries in the region have made some strides. And Botswana, we heard this morning that Botswana is aiming to reach that universal access by 2030. We have the Oceanic island states that already reached that level. But we still have some member states, of which we are aware of, member states without naming, shaming member states, that are still below 30%, as our ES alluded to in the morning. In the infrastructure, we have 5 or 6 sectors, starting from energy, transport, ICT, and water, and meteorology currently. This is the 5 sectors that we are dealing with. And under the energy program, the key issues that we are dealing with is the issue of security of energy supply, of which is also embedded in the theme for this event. The issue of access, then also tapping into natural resources in terms of energy, and of course, sustainability of such in terms of their utilization. The objective is to ensure that we coordinate energy in a manner that is reliable, least cost, and with minimum impact to the environment while attaining the economic growth. Their priorities, as stipulated in the energy sector, are still developing the regional power generation and transmission, of which our colleagues from SAP are coordinating. Then promoting renewable energy and energy efficiency, our colleagues from Sadc are being assigned to coordinate this one. Then development of the fossil fuels in terms of oil and gas. This is still an orphan in terms of having a dedicated institution at regional level for its coordination. We have other forms of energy in the region that are already existing, such as coal, nuclear, and also the interaction of energy and climate change. These are other areas that we are dealing with without compromising other sectors. In terms of reporting that I mentioned earlier on, we have a structure whereby we have these regional institutions, starting with the RERA. Our colleagues here, Mr. Robinson, presented earlier on, Southern African Power Pool, SACRI, and we also have the Kapwe Coach Regional Training Center, which is more focusing on capacity building issues. So as the organogram in front of stipulates, all these institutions, they report to your committee, the Committee of Ministers responsible for energy through the Sadc Secretariat. And your committee, as you are all aware about in the terms of Sadc structures, they report to the Council of Ministers. And if issues still need to be elevated, the Council will elevate them to Summit of Heads of State and Government. This is how we report and how we coordinate any sector in the region. There are still outstanding institutions that are yet to be established in terms of coordinating other sectors, such as coal, such as coordinating the oil and gas issues. We have the REPCA that was designed by ministers way back in 2010, but to establish it, it has been a challenge in terms of its funding. Honourable Ministers, distinct delegates, as I just mentioned that we have these strategies that I alluded to earlier on, let me not go into details into them, that have been enacted or recently and approved by the committees. The one on SAP, that's one SACRI is working on, the issue of energy access. Then we have the grid code. These are regulatory issues to ensure that when our utilities are exchanging power among themselves within the region. Even at national level, they comply to the minimum standards in terms of power transmission, in terms of power trading among themselves. So we have the code that was approved by our committees last year in May. This is coordinated by our colleagues from RERA, Regional Energy Regulators Association. We have the gas master plan. This came as a directive from heads of state and government way back in 2017, with the emerging discovery of gas in the region, to see how gas also can play a meaningful impact in terms of energy and, of course, even in the industrialization of the region. So we are now, in terms of energy access, to intensify the energy access in the region to ensure that at least we reach the tier 3, which is, this is defined by the World Bank, to have access to electricity at least even 8 hours per day. People, consumers can be able to have the lights and at least to charge their gadgets even at household level. This is what we are aiming to reach at least by 2030. And we hope that this dream or the vision will be achieved with your effort and your guidance moving forward. Of course, the issue of access is also part of the SDG, of which as member states, I know that all SADC member states are members of the United Nations. They will be reporting the progress when they go in terms of the delivery or implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal. SDG number 7 is our goal on energy access, renewable energy, energy efficiency, to ensure that we reach that level where everybody in the region have access to electricity. There's a lot of investment. Our ES mentioned earlier on. We need to invest, according to REA sub-study, $250 billion to reach universal access in the region. Honourable Ministers, we also undertook a review of the Regional Infrastructure Development Master Plan, Short-Term Action Plan, that's the second one. Because this master plan was developed way back in 2012 and approved by Sadc structures. So moving forward, we did the review in 2023. While we had so many projects in consultation with the member states, and we came up with priority projects which covered almost all the countries. And these projects, we have 15 of them, or 5 that are generation with the cost or gap for funding of around 15.5 billion. The transmission cost projects, 14 of them, they need 2.3 billion. And we also, as per your directive, always ensure that Oceanic member states, that is Madagascar, Mauritius, Seychelles, and Comoros, in no order of importance, they are always covered in terms of projects. So we have that 18 billion gap, which our ES also alluded to earlier on, that need to cover these projects as priority projects, which covering all the region to meet the energy demand. So in terms of the projects, our colleagues also, before we step in here, there are some projects that are ongoing. There are those that we are happy to report that are already been at implementation phase. The Malawi-Mozambique interconnector, and our executive director also from SAP mentioned the about to be completely commissioned the Julius Nyerere hydropower station, and of course even the interconnector between South Africa and Namibia. When I look at the map there, it shows the southwestern part of the region being slightly orange, the other part being blue. This simply indicates that the north and the northeastern part of the region is hydropower based, while the southwestern part, we know it is dominated by solar. So this means that we have to find means of how to prioritize projects based on the competitive advantage for each region or sub-region. This is just indicating the trend in terms of their level of implementation. I mentioned the issue of gas earlier on. What we proposed from the study on regional gas master plan proposed is to develop the clusters or the corridors that will develop the projects for gas in the region. And we are now in the process to see how best all these corridors for region, for trading of gas from where they reach from the countries or regions that are rich in terms of gas resources, that gas, how can that gas be used to fulfill that corridor? Moving forward, and in terms of conclusion, we are, as a secretariat, appealing to ministers, appealing to their cooperating partners to ensure that all mainland member states are interconnected. This is the appeal from SAP and even from our ES. That's Angola, Malawi, and the Republic of Tanzania. The important part about Tanzania is the fact that if that interconnection between Zambia and Tanzania can be commissioned as soon as possible, it will also enable SAP to be connected to the East African power pool, which will imply that now we'll be able to trade power from Cape to Cairo. Ensure that the region is sufficient in terms of general capacity to meet the increasing demand and to replace the Asian power plants that we all observed in our neighboring countries. In South Africa, to mention about other countries, we still know that they are facing challenges. We are also advocating to reach at least 85%, knowing that the challenges that are and the costs that are associated with this. And countries that are aiming to reach 100%, that is well and good, and it's also highly appreciated. Increasing the utilization of energy sources in the region to increase energy access and energy conservation, and also to ensure that all energy projects, renewable energy projects, are sustainably promoted at national level. Lastly, but not least, earlier on, colleagues and the presenters, they talked about the just energy transition. We are in the process of developing this framework, which will present to you in the, most probably in your next energy ministers meeting, for you to consider and approve this framework for just energy transition, which is meant to ensure that nobody is left behind in terms of energy, to cater for both the energy supply and also for the demand, and to ensure that there's a balance in terms of energy from the renewable energy and other forms of energy. Then also to ensure that gas plays an important role in terms of energy mix in the region. Then also to intensify the funding mechanisms. We have come with which was approved by both ministers of energy, ministers of finance, and of course even the council, to operationalize the regional transmission infrastructure financing facility. We hope this facility will be able to stimulate and also leverage investment in terms of a regional transmission facility, in terms of transmission projects. Our colleagues from SAP, they are here. They can allude to this, that they've already pledged some amount that can be put into this facility so that they can also be able to attract the investors and those who are willing to support the initiative to transmission. Honourable Ministers, this is a situation that we have in the region, and we thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward for interaction, and of course, the guidance in terms of moving forward. I thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you, Mr. Ntlame, for sharing that comprehensive presentation in regard to both opportunities and challenges in our Sadc region, in regard to energy efficiency and security. I think now to start off our session, I would like to welcome our honorable ministers. And I think throughout the discussions today, we've realized, audible? Okay. And I think throughout our discussions today, we've realized a strong emphasis on the importance of policy alignment and collaboration for a just energy transition. So, and I think also looking at the fact that, or admitting, as African nations, that we can no longer harness our natural wealth without considering our environmental implications on our countries. So for that, I would like to start with you, our Deputy Permanent Secretary, to really understand I would like to start with you, our Permanent Secretary, Deputy Permanent Secretary, to really lay the foundation on where Botswana is in regard to robust policy frameworks in diversifying our energy mix.
Thank you very much. MC, good afternoon. It's a privilege for me to be representing my honorable minister and to be rubbing shoulders with honorable ministers. Thank you very much. For Botswana's case, what we did in terms of enhancing renewable energies, in 2020, we came up with a demand forecast, which is something that most countries will normally do in terms of electricity generation. And based on that, we then came up with a policy, 20-year policy, from 2020 to 2040. And this was approved by Cabinet, so that it gives that assurance that whatever programs that we come up with, they will be implemented. As you may be aware this morning, His Excellency indicated that some of our projects in the RP includes the 8 gigawatts that I'll talk about. We then developed what we called integrated resource plan for the 20-year period to address the demand forecast. And in those, we came up with targets, clear targets, which earlier on, I think the BPC representative slightly touched on. From the RP, one of our targets is to have 50% renewable energy contribution by 2030. Where we are now as the country, we are at less than 2% renewable energy contribution. So you can really see that this is an ambitious plan that within the next 4 to 5 years, we'll have reached 50% renewable energy contribution. And what we intend to do within the next 4 years is to implement, as earlier indicated by His Excellency, from 1.5 gigawatts that we are currently doing up to 8 gigawatts. And what we did, as earlier indicated, the Electric Supply Act was actually amended in 2008 to allow IPPs in Botswana. So all these projects that we are going to be doing, or we have been doing, they are going to be done through independent power producers. And one of the targets also for the IRP is to have 100% access of electricity by 2030. The current target is around 76%. And the question was earlier raised on in terms of the challenges. There's a big challenge now of actually reaching the 100% because what remains, that is the 25%, is the remote areas which cannot be connected to the grid. So what we intend to do to connect those, these are areas where there's a population of less than 2,000 people. But our intention is for them to have clean electricity by 2030. So what we intend to do is to have mini solar grids. And the challenge that we are facing here is we are not able to bring in investors because those projects are not viable. So we are looking at partners to see how we can get financing, either concessional financing or finance or grants, so that we can be able to implement those projects. Here we are talking about less than 150 villages or settlements. So as we speak now, we are currently implementing as a pilot about 6 projects using our own resources. But as you can imagine, it will not be enough. There are other competing needs for us. So we also need sort of support to be able to reach that. So that's the biggest challenge that we are facing, to reach that last mileage in terms of renewable energy. The project that we have, will be mainly solar. And one of the biggest challenges that we have in Southern Africa is that we have the same load profile. Here, what I mean is that we reach the whole of Southern Africa. Morning peak is the same, evening peak is the same. So basically, we face a challenge whereby during the evening peak, which normally starts at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 10, that's the biggest challenge, because if you only put renewable PV without storage, then you are not able to support the evening peak. And the cost of electricity during that time becomes very, very huge. So it's an area that we need to address. We are not able to support each other during that time. So it's an area that we need to address to see going forward. Because if you put battery storage, which most countries will do, there's a challenge now of affordability. As we speak now already in Botswana, our average tariff is around 10 US cents per kilowatt hour. And there's still a huge cry that is still high. It's not cost reflective. But you have to now include whether CSP with storage or PV, then it causes a lot of issues in terms of affordability. So all in all, the 1.5 gigawatts that we intend to immediately secure, it will be through entering a power purchase agreement with our utility BPC. And one of the challenges that we also now will be facing will be in terms of getting a market for that. Our demand in Botswana is around 700 megawatts. And if you look at our thermal plants, we've got Morupule B, you can say 500 megawatts, Morupule A, 100 megawatts. If those plants were reliable, they'll be covering our load. Now, if we have to put a 1.5 gigawatts, we have to start thinking of external markets. Where do you get the market? This is an area that we need to look at, and it comes with its own associated challenges, like in terms of, which we'll talk about, obviously, regional integration. How do we access markets if they are available out there? And I know one of the challenges that we are facing in terms of is planning, although it's not the question that you asked. We plan in silos. Here in Botswana, we talk about this 1.5 gigawatts to 8 gigawatts. Other countries in the regions, they're also planning generation with the view to export. So you can see that there's that need for us to harmonize our planning, because otherwise we are going to have what we call white elephants in terms of infrastructure once all these projects are developed and in place. I'd like to stop here for the time being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mutembe, and for sharing that proactive approach to energy diversification in our country. I would like to turn my attention to you, Honorable Mumba, because looking at the issue of measuring these projects, I think at the end of the day, we all implement these policies for a conducive environment, but at the end of it all, it is about the lives changed. The lives that has been changed, and the ecosystem that has been like putting together an ecosystem. So coming to you, Honorable, how can we measure the success of these policies to ensure they are driving real change towards our sustainable energy targets?
Thank you so much. So basically, I'm fluent in French, but I'll try to express myself in English. So as we can see that the reality of Democratic Republic of Congo is a little bit different, because we are a big country with a great potential of hydro, 100 gigawatts of potential in hydro, 82 gigawatts of potential in photovoltaics, and 60 gigawatts of potential in clean gases. And for that, we just implement some policies to make the development of that, of different infrastructure. Because the problem in the country actually, regarding, for example, for the potential we have in hydro, we just use it at 3%. And today, the 3 gigawatts produced in DRC is all clean. We are an example of the future, because today, as in DRC, the 99.9% of electricity produced is from hydro, due to the potential we have in Inga. And what we have done today, as we made the compact project, we presents DRC like a solutions country for the regional integration. Because 90% in DRC, they are using the wood, char, to cook. And we want to reverse it by developing the new project. And as we know that we have a great fall of Inga Dam, we want to develop the third part. And these projects can solve the problem for the whole region. Regarding for building this new infrastructure, they will provide us more electricity and to make a decarbonization electricity for the southern area. And as we can see, we make facilities in our law to make that we have a big problem regarding to the facility of people to produce. Today, the law of electricity in DRC can allow people to come and invest. And we just make a promotions for private sector to come and give these investments in the country and see how they can provide clean energy for all people in the country and even for the southern side. And we are developing now more infrastructure regarding for transportation. As myself, I was in December to meet my colleague from Zambia for a new project of interaction connection lines of 50 kilometers between DRC and Zambia. And we can be able to transmit more than 300 megawatts more. But coming from Zambia today, but it can be an exchange for tomorrow because we can have the great potential to have a clean energy in our country. And we are giving these facilities in terms of investment, like actually we can have some taxes reduced even for 10 years for different kind of projects. And this is the effort that the government in DRC is doing in these sectors to make that we want to raise the rates of access in electricity because actually it's just 20% of the country has an access to electricity and we want to reach it to 60% by 2030. But developing some solar projects also because we have a good sunshine in Africa also, 5.7 kilowatts per meter square. And this is a great potentiality. And the effort of our government is to make that all the people who want to invest in photovoltaic, they can have free taxes from materials which is coming out of the country. And this is the main support that the government is doing, like a change of policies to make the development of the sectors and to make it clean. And as we have seen, DRC, the great potential of clean energy, and we just complete it to promote that, to call different people from different countries to come and invest in our country to give the best solution regarding to sustainable energy. So it's a good exercise for me to express in English. Thank you.
You did very well. Thank you, Honorable Mumba. I think now shifting our focus to another critical aspect of energy transition, which is energy access and equity. Honorable Moleko, the floor is yours. Please share perspectives on how Lesotho is working towards improving energy access while promoting equity.
Thank you, Madam. Let me start by greeting the audience. As it has been said, my name is Mohlomi Moleko. I'm the Minister of Natural Resources in Lesotho, responsible for water, mining, and energy. So maybe my answers will touch a bit on water. But I would like to take the cue from one of the colleagues in the audience who said that we should now say what we are doing as opposed to talking about the plans. Because obviously, all the countries have their, say, rural electrification plans. You have your policies, but I'll really get into what we are doing to provide energy to the people. But this is actually, when you do it, you have to look at generation, you have to look at transmission, and then distribution. It's very difficult to just talk about transmission, distribution without talking about where the electricity is coming from. In Lesotho, like all other countries, we want to be a net exporter of clean energy. And I think we are on track to becoming that within the next 2 years. In the sense that we have about 5 projects or 5 companies that are already working in Lesotho to actually get us to achieve that. For instance, we are already building an 80 megawatt solar farm, of which 30 megawatts is already on grid. Then we have another company, American company, that's going to be doing 24 megawatts. We have a Belgian company that's doing wind tests for a wind farm. And then we have 2 South African companies that will be doing about 500 megawatts of solar. But all this energy, like I said, the excess energy will be sold to South Africa. We are about to sign an MOU with South Africa in terms of the excess energy that we'll be producing. Over and above that, we have awarded a contract for building our second hydro power station, which is called Oxbow. It's an 80 megawatt power station built under our cooperation with South Africa, under the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. Oxbow will be built under that. But just to conclude in terms of generation, we also have a big project with Botswana, which is called the Lesotho-Botswana Water Transfer. We are going to be building a dam called Magaleng, which will have a hydropower station, and then we'll have a conveyor system 700 kilometers to Botswana to provide water to Gaborone. And along the way, we will be giving water to the South African towns, such as Bloemfontein and Mafikeng. So that's what we are doing in terms of generation. Obviously, to evacuate the power, we've been doing feasibility studies with ESCOM for evacuation of power into South Africa, and we are also going to be expanding our transmission lines. Now, coming to the question of maybe distribution to the citizens. We actually have broken the country into 2, rural areas and the urban areas, and we are using about 3 institutions to provide electricity to the people. For instance, we have the Lesotho Electricity Company that's providing, that's extending the grid to the urban areas, and then we have the Rural Electrification Unit that's doing, say, mini grids for the hardest to reach places in the mountains. But we also have an institution called the Lesotho Renewable Energy and Energy Access Project that's looking at providing electricity to health facilities and the schools, plus also they are doing mini grids. At present, we have allocated about 10 concessions to a private company, an American private company, to provide electricity to the rural areas. And I think before end of March, we'll be also taking out a tender for 10 more concessions. So that's in general, that's the approach we are taking. But obviously, since Lesotho is mountainous, you also need to do standalone solar systems for individual households. So what we want to do now is to increase the number of companies that are providing electricity in Lesotho, especially private companies, whereby we will be selling them, say, bulk electricity for them to maybe provide electricity to a number of villages which are clustered, so that they can put the infrastructure, put in the prepaid meters, and then recoup their capital investment plus the returns by agreeing maybe on the tariff with our regulator. But there, the challenge is that the tariffs, once you do mini grids, is a bit high, which means we have to have an energy fund to subsidize that high cost. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Moleko. Over to you, Honorable Matola. I think in the previous session, they really articulated the importance of attracting investment incentives for our just energy transition. And we are all at crossroads as governments because we can no longer shoulder climate change investments on our balance sheets. So given your progressive stance on renewable energy, what type of investment incentives has Malawi implemented to attract private sector participation in sustainable energy projects?
Thank you very much for according Malawi the opportunity to explain and to share the knowledge with the audience. I'll begin by saying that in order to curb the energy generation challenges in Malawi, the Malawi National Energy Policy of 2018 promotes the private sector in order to participate as independent power producer. So far, 101 megawatts have been injected into the national grid as follows: 60 megawatts, and then 20 megawatts, and 21 megawatts. Now, to focus on the question, I'll share a category of 3 incentives that Malawi has used to attract the private sector. Number 1 is about the energy sector specific incentives. They are duty-free importance. Number 1 is electricity generation equipment, energy saver bulbs, solar batteries and charges, energy lamps, and generations and inverters. So as a Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Finance, we have looked into it and see the areas where we can attract the independent power producers to come into the country. Number 2 is priority industry status, tax holiday, up to 10 years. Malawi has generated energy sector as a priority and introduced the following. Number 1 is the zero tax. Corporate income tax rates for a period not exceeding 10 years. Number 2, an exemption of duty-free of importation of capital goods and building materials as described under the taxation Priority Industry Regulation 2013. Number 3, to qualify companies should invest a minimum of 30 million US dollars for any type of share holding. Last, not the least, general customs and excise tax incentives. Malawi has exempted impact duty and import VAT. First one is about the machinery. Most of the machinery are tax-free. Specific types of machinery where VAT remarks or VAT remains payable at 16.15%, 16.5%, and special purpose motor vehicles other than these principal designated to transport persons or goods. In summary, physical incentives have proven to be the main concern of private sector incentives. All the private sector investors in Malawi will continue to offer those and will continue to implement reforms to create an enable environment to private sector and the participation of the private sector in the energy sector in order to have much needed of power. I rest my case on that one.
Those are really commendable strides, Honorable. Now turning our focus to Mozambique. Despite our regional economic disparities, Mozambique has made notable progress in aligning its national energy policies with Sadc goals. How has your country achieved this to promote regional integration?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing us to share with you and the public and our distinguished guests what we are doing in terms of energy transition. Mozambique has harmonized energy policies with the regional energy goals by implementing a framework of regulations aiming to promote and incentivize the investment in energy infrastructure. Mozambique actively participates in regional forums such as Southern Africa Renewable Energy and Efficiency Center, SACRE, and the African Renewable Initiative, ARE, where it gathers experience from other countries and contributes to the development of a regional legal framework. Mozambique has recently approved the energy transition strategy with aim to accelerate the implementation of economic development trajectory with the low carbon emissions that allows the country to generate inclusive socio-economic growth and become a regional green energy hub and contribute to the global energy transition. In Sadc region, where the majority of population still does not have access to clean energy and depends on wood fuel and to meet domestic energy needs, the energy transition will have the necessary recognize the need to continue promoting social economic development and industrialization. In the case of Mozambique, we approved the National Electrification Strategy with the goal of universal access by 2030. The program has allowed us to move from 29% in 2018 to 60% access rate in 2024. Mozambique's energy potential is vast and can contribute to the supply of countries at the regional and the global level, with the emphasis on hydro, solar, wind, biomass energy, as well as natural gas, which is one of the pillars of the energy transition. I would like to emphasize some ongoing priority energy projects with a regional impact. The Mpanakua hydropower plant, 1,500 megawatts. Temani thermal power plant, 450 megawatts. Mozambique-Malawi regional interconnection line, 400 kVs. And Mozambique-Zambia regional interconnection line, 400 kV. Thank you. Muito obrigado.
Thank you, sir. I think we've had great points on unlocking energy trade opportunities in the Sadc region. I would like for us to dive now into the challenges. To you, Honorable Chikote, what barriers still exist in cross-border trade, and how has Zambia partnered with others to tackle them?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. First of all, I'm sure when His Excellency the President officially opened this conference, he did put it very clearly that we need to move from talks to action, or rather implementation. As Sadc, first of all of us, we are convinced that the region has the potential to respond to sustainable energy. It's undisputable that the Sadc region can do better. But what we lack in our region, number one, is collaboration. When we don't collaborate, yet we have identified issues, challenges that are affecting the region, there's no way we'll keep on coming here, meeting. Next year we meet in Zimbabwe, because we have not addressed the areas that we have identified. There is lack of collaboration in our region. What Zambia is doing is contrary to what the neighbor is doing, is contrary to what, there's no way we can achieve the bigger picture. Sustainable energy, renewable energy, is just in our hands as a region. The challenge is that even our policies in the region are not speaking to each other. So as a region, we need to harmonize our policies. We need to harmonize the policies that talks about the market. We need to harmonize our policies that attract investment in our respective countries. But today, we are here as a team, especially I will start with ourselves who are seated here, in leadership, policymakers. We are speaking of the same language. We are speaking of the challenges that are affecting the region. We leave our meetings, you find that we are doing different things. Then how do we achieve for the region? How do we attract investment? How do we promote private participation? Us seated in leadership, in government, who are policymakers, First, we must look at our policies. How are they adding value as a region? Because instability in Zimbabwe, instability in Mozambique, instability in Angola, Botswana, is an instability in Zambia. But if we come together and implement the policies that talks to our region, that talks to our demand, that talks to our generation, we will be able to say we have moved from this level, we are at this level. That's the more reason His Excellency the President said, these should not be the talk shows. So to me, I see policies going forward must talk to each other in the region. Also, there's no way we can talk about achievements if we don't have unity. Unity is a key area to the implementation of all the challenges that are affecting our region. We need to unite, which will result into regional integration. Because regional integration will drive us to work as a team to create common rules, to create common regulations that will see us surpassing the energy challenges that we are facing as countries. As a region, we cannot run away from the climate effects. Climate effects have affected all of us. Today, I will give you a quick example with what is happening with Zambia. Zambia, we depended on hydro power generation. 85% of the power is hydro. But when we were hit by drought, 23-24 season, all our power supply went down, resulting into economic challenges, resulting into creating problems for our citizens. And to us, we looked at it that this is a wake-up call. A wake-up call to start exploring other renewable energy sources. Today, as I'm talking to you, ladies and gentlemen, we are now focusing in other alternative sources of energy, which is what? Solar, wind, geo. Now, where is the challenge? We have also looked at the policies as a country. What will unlock this is policy reforms. Zambia, we have launched open access to electricity, which allows multiple players to come on board, to use the transmission, to do the distribution without discrimination, to answer to the challenge that we have been going through, to avoid the monopoly system that has been existing. Today, Zambia and players are free to participate into generation, to participate into distribution and transmission without discrimination. Again, because of the crisis that we went through, we decided to say we also need to introduce a program of net metering. Net metering gives an opportunities to the consumers, both at the household level and the commercial, that as they produce their own power, they will be able to give the surplus into the national grid to release the stress on the national grid. We are talking of, trying to achieve universal access to electricity by 2030. Most of us in the region, that's what we are talking about. But how do we achieve that? is to make sure that the reforms, the policies that we are putting in place will be able to help our countries to drive that agenda. Otherwise, it will be just a talk show. Otherwise, it will be just, theories. Our colleagues who gave us a lot of insight, our partners, they mentioned a lot of things which sounds very, very, very nice. But we need also to collaborate. When they provide support to the private, I think there's need now to start reflecting what is causing not to implement the projects that we are talking about. Cooperating partners now must understand to look direct to the problems that are affecting our countries in terms of energy. It is high time cooperating partners also needed to understand what is causing the delays in terms of implementation. They need by now to identify that to move forward, to stop these talking shows, they need also to move in the direction of reducing delayments, especially where financial closures are discussed. Back in Zambia, I will tell you, I've got a number of investors, but they're struggling with financial closure. And we will keep on talking. So maybe these are the areas I feel that if we were to, to move forward, to report that here now we have moved from this stage and we are here as countries or as a region, is also to address the challenges that we are facing in terms of financial closures. Our cooperating partners can do well to understand the challenges the private sectors are going through. Zambia as a country, we have told ourselves that we need to create environment that supports private sector to participate in the energy sector. And this is how together, both public and private, coming together, working as a team, will be able to actualize the theories that we have discussed, I would say even a century behind us. Some of the people who have proposed good ideas, they are no longer around. We still keep on talking of these good ideas. I think it's a high time, us policymakers, to change the strategy on how now to walk the talk. We have done enough talking. We have not done enough talking. It is us.
Very true.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable. I think I've been advised on time. Now handing over to our Honorable from Zimbabwe. I think Honorable Chikote has really articulated the importance of impact and private sector collaboration. From the Zimbabwe perspective, how has you collaborated with private sector to really drive the energy sector in Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. I want to accept most of the issues that have been raised by my colleagues and just add 2 or 3. Let me start at the closure, financial closure that has been talked about. We have too many projects, very good projects, some of them well analyzed by Southern African Power Pool, by Sadc, by Sadc itself. They have shown you some of the interconnectors which they think are bankable in either bilateral countries or regional. So why are we not having financial closure? In the case of Zimbabwe, you can say, obviously, since our land reform, we have had sanctions, but other countries who don't have those sanctions are still also not having financial closure. To get around it, I propose that we look at our own savings, first, our own savings in the region. Many of you, your capital markets include your pension schemes, your insurance portfolios, which are plentiful. And they are the first savings of your people. When you have state pensions, if they are funded and there's a fund for it, you are forcing your people to save. If you have a social security scheme and it is a fund, you are also forcing your people to save. And there are many company-based or industry-based pension schemes in all our countries. What I think we have failed to do, which we have started unlocking in Zimbabwe, is that these forced savings must look at critical areas that can drive our economy. I have just come last week, we had the National Competitive Conference, which was addressed by the President. When we left that room, there was no argument that if we don't fix our energy issues, the economy will not tick in the manner, in the direction that we want it to tick. So who is to fund the energy sector? And we have started seeing some of our pension schemes. They are now funding mini hydro. They are now the drivers in funding solar energy. Yes, some of them with partners from outside, but the fact of the matter now is our pension schemes, our insurance schemes, our banks are beginning to say this is where you can make money, and at the same time moving from fossil fuels and fossil-based power generation to renewable. So they are there. The second aspect that I want to discuss is the question of access to our people. When we created these, what do we call it, the regulatory frameworks, the one thing that we are clear about is they should afford us two things. First, to protect our poor, to extend access to the poor. That is why you have regulations. Secondly, to make sure that those who come into the sector, while it is cost reflective, they don't end up making it possible for the economy to grow. Because we live in a competitive world. We compete among ourselves. The Sadc is correct, is natural, it must be. But over and above that, we compete with other regions. So our energy must be in such a manner that while it is cost reflective, but we must have our ball on the eye to make ourselves very competitive. So we have created these ZERAs in Zimbabwe and others. The third thing which I want to talk about, yes, I agree, we must not have talk shops. But our institutions that we have created, and we must celebrate our forefathers who created Sadc, who created the energy sector. If you look at chapter 4 of the energy protocol, it is very clear. While the men from Sadc only showed us up to the structures, if he had gone further, just to say what is the commission supposed to do, everything that we are talking about is well articulated. But every year we should now go and do a reality check. What have you done about coordination of this? What have you done about research in this area? What have you done in research of the technology? All that is articulated in our Sadc protocol. We, as energy ministers, officials, at all levels, in the structure that has been analyzed for us, we really should be battling to say, if you are SACRI, what is your mandate? And what can you do to drive so that we don't talk shop? If you are in the Southern African Power Pool, what should you be doing? And all the structures, committee of officials, that's what we must focus on to say, what should we be driving so that we don't talk shop? I want to finish by saying we are in the right direction. We have leadership that is clear that they want to drive this economy. We have officers ourselves together with other ministers, we must start to interrogate and say, where do we go from here? And all the ministers, all the private sector, we should be participating. Finally, in order to overcome the shortage in generation, in Zimbabwe, we have something what we call captive power plants. If you're a big company and we have some mega ones, why don't you use your already built-in generation capacity to generate for yourself so that we don't import it and we import from Zambia, which is also struggling, or from South Africa, which is struggling, but Mozambique, which is not struggling. But if you started, for instance, you are doing coke ovens, those coke ovens will produce coking coal gas. That gas should not be flying in the air. You should capture it and create and have electricity generation. If you are doing biogas or you are doing green fuel, Zimbabwe, our fuel, petrol, is E20. That means our blending is 20% of the fuel. But that biogas can be turned into electricity. And now they are producing electricity. It must go into the grid for what they are not using. So if I tell you the number of online, which the president will be commissioning, I think he commissioned 100 megawatts today. Those who are in line to, we are in line to do, because the companies are saying, let's produce for ourselves, but also let's produce in the grid. Net metering, yes. All other avenues, we have gas, we have wind, we have geo, we have solar. All these are necessary to be exploited, not just by the national power utilities, by the private sector. And the financial aspects that have been articulated in terms of the fiscus must be placed to the disposal of the private sector. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Moyo. And thank you all our honorable ministers for those valuable insights. I think we have shared diverse strategies and shared challenges, all underscoring regional collaboration and impact. I would now like to open the floor for questions, but in the interest of time, I'm going to be able to take only 2 questions from the floor. Thank you. I'll start with the gentleman in the middle there. There should be a mic on the table there. Ushers, could you please assist?
Good afternoon. My name is Samuel Mapena from Blue Solar, Botswana. I've got 2 questions which I would like to pass on to the panel. I hear everything that is being said, and we are talking about the good infrastructure, the funding being available to all. But one of the key things that I think 99% of the current panel and the previous panelists did not mention is, given the rapid advancements in sustainable energy technologies, how can we ensure effective skills transfer and capacity building across Sadc to empower local workforces? And also, what role should training programs play in fostering long-term sustainable development in the energy sector? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Is there any other question? Yes, my lady, may go ahead.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. My name again is Panusi Mbakany. I'm from the company called iCarbon. There are two questions, one for Botswana, and I think the last one for Zimbabwe. For Botswana, you talked about the region avoiding white elephant. And I tend to agree with you, because if we all, as Sadc countries, produce or generate enough power for our people and have access, where do we store that access? Because we can't trade amongst ourselves if you all have access. And therefore, maybe the structures, when you talked about being careful to avoid creating structures that will lead to white elephant, maybe you can explain that further. But I understood you to mean that if each country was to generate enough for its population, for its people, and have access, do we have storage for that access maybe to be used when there's emergencies of maybe there's more need somewhere in Sadc countries? I think the other one is to do with finance. I think the issue of finance, I believe that that's where the secretariat can really coordinate and ensure that the finance that we have should go around in projects that needs to be funded in the region. I believe that some will come with maybe equity from investors, as we have had in Lesotho, articulating different types of investors coming to party, equally here in Botswana as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mbakany. Thank you for those questions. I think, my honorable ministers, I would pose the question to you for training and skills transfer. Does anyone would like to take that question, because it was posed to all the panelists?
Yes, maybe let me go first. In Lesotho, within our projects, like the one which I just mentioned, which is the Lesotho Renewable Energy and Energy Access Project, we have capacity building for women and youth. There's training in collaboration with the National University of Lesotho, where after the training they are certified. At the same time, we encourage private companies that are building our facilities to work with local contractors as subcontractors to do some of the work. And in the solar farm that we are building, which is the 80 megawatts with some Chinese firms, TB and Sinoma, more than 50% of the work was done by a local company, Mossad. So they also gain experience in that regard by subcontracting. But at the same time, we take people abroad to institutions that can do training in line with those projects. So we have, for instance, we have established the Lesotho Generation Company that's consistently training its staff on renewable energy to manage these facilities. Thank you.
And I think I'll give it to you, Deputy Permanent Secretary, for the question from Ms. Mbakany.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Mbakany. I was talking about having to avoid white elephants in terms of generation, because as we may have heard from the honorable ministers here, each country is doing its own in terms of generation planning. Like in Botswana, our intention is to be self-sufficient by 2027 and be able to export. And I heard the same thing from the ministers. They want to export. And the question is, who are you exporting to? If everybody is going to be generating and exporting. So this therefore calls for us to harmonize our generation, to determine a Sadc, our market, so that when we plan this generation, we are able to address the market. The challenge that Zambia had because of the droughts, Now I know I've been in Zambia 2 weeks ago. They're trying to expand their coal power plants. Yes, if you got a challenge, you immediately try to address yourselves. But here in Botswana, already putting projects, base load. So the best cooperation would be, say, between Zimbabwe or Zambia, why don't we have a long-term power purchase agreement since we already have projects that are in there? Then we develop interconnectors. So these are the areas. But if, just give you the example of Zambia, they are going to have their own projects, we are going to have their own. Where are they, eventually, where are we going to have those, the market? Sometimes it's difficult when you talk about in terms of storage. Normally energy, you want to generate it and get used immediately. So storage, it will be when you want to use it, maybe peak hours and so forth. But in this case, we need to plan our generation so that there's efficient use. Otherwise, 10 years down the line, as we all do our own little things in silos, we're going to have a serious problem. Say, well, now where do we get this power to? So that's the question that I believe that through Sadc, we need to harmonize our planning in terms of transmission, in terms of our generation, so that in future we don't find ourselves having these issues of white elephants in generation. Just to try and address the issue of training, capacity building is key. We're talking about renewable energy in terms of wind, solar, and so forth. These are some of new technologies within the region. So there's really a need for us to ensure that we capacitate our people in terms of planning, in terms of project management, in terms of contract management. But most importantly also, I challenge the institutions, our learning institutions, to ensure that they include in their syllabuses such courses where in terms of renewable energies and so project management and so forth. Because the future lies in renewable energy, whether it's wind or solar. We are moving away slowly from coal, but we need to have those skills in terms of going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Matabe. I think as we are closing our session, okay, all right, Honorable Moyo, just 1 minute for that one.
Yes, I just wanted to respond to the good lady who talked about financing. And she said our secretariat should be proactive, and I agree with her. We came from a summit in Tanzania where countries pledged, World Bank, African Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Bank, and the Arab Bank. They all pledged up to 50 billion. Now, if as a region, we don't sit under our secretariat and invite this and reduce it to not pledges, but to bankable projects, it will fly away or it will remain untapped. So I agree with her. And I know our Sadc secretariat is enough on their plate, but this is crucial if they can coordinate. The last one about surplus. We have suppressed demand. Let's face it, when we are all in deficit, we actually are operating in suppressed demand. I remember in 1994, South Africa had 35,000 installed capacity, and their demand was 20 to 21,000 megawatts. They squandered that within 4 years. By 98, that's why we were thinking about Inga, because it had been squandered. I believe if our curve of supply side of energy is above the demand, we will attract more investment than what we are doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Moyo. I think as we are closing our session, I would like to give it to you, Honorable Ministers, just for a closing remarks, but revolving around impact, because I think we have come at a point where we can no longer be used as media as greenwashing vehicles, because the problems are there on the ground and they're catching up with us. Today, maybe if there's a child somewhere in the country or in our region who didn't go to school because there was no any means of them making fire or to bath to go to school, or there's a child somewhere who went to school just to have a meal because at home there's nothing to use to cook. So I would give it to you, Mr. Mutebe, just closing remarks on the importance of coming up with policies that really speak to impact, and we ensure that we implement those in a more really to address the problems at hand.
Thank you very much. In closure, maybe I need to share this, why we in Botswana are at 76% access, and we believe that we'll be able to achieve 100% by 2030. We have what is called the National Education Fund. In there, for unit that customers buy, they pay about 10 tebe, it's 0.01 US cent. That goes to that fund. And the fund is to enable us to extend our grid mainly to the rural areas. And the last mileage in terms of connectivity, in Botswana, we are now connecting everyone in terms of household for free. And we use that fund. So it's something that perhaps within the region, they can think about it going forward. We think it's impactful, it's meaningful, because since we implemented it about a year ago, even in villages where there was electricity, our communities were not able to connect, because even the connection cost, even though it was around 5,000 pula, $500 US, it was still expensive for the rural areas. Now they're able to connect for free because of this fund that we created. But last but not least is that the region has to have that regional planning for our projects. And also for I want to emphasize this. Suppressed demand is there, but as long as we don't have something that we plan holistically together, today we have this deficit, tomorrow we are going to have something even more difficult. And remember, when we have got energy that you cannot sell, the investors will request you to pay for it. So and that will be a bigger challenge that we have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Honorable Mumba.
Yes, thanks a lot. So as what can say that regarding to the policy to encourage, in terms of DRC, actually we are doing some, like a similar in Botswana today with a program we named Agrit, because there is many people in rural areas that doesn't have the capacity to pay, to be connected. And we are doing so because it's helping to change the manner of using wood, but using electricity, and to help people to be connected, because actually the big challenge is to raise the rate of people who can be connected to the grid. And since we have given electricity, the life even in some rural side is changing. We can see, you can remark it to the life of the young lady, because in rural side, the young lady, she is supposed to wake up early, to go and collect some wood, to make fire, to prepare the water, to cook for his brother, and to go to school after that. But since we start to connect to this rural for free, for helping them, she can go to school at the right moment, and even the perfume will change. It's not the smelling of smoke, but she's going very good because we are doing this program. So we want to say that this connectivity is helping people to change their life, and we are doing our best that most of this electricity has been produced by a clean energy, a water and photovoltaic. But we need in the regional sites to find together and to see a comparative advantage for producing, for generation, for transmission. It can help the development of the market and the connectivity to so quick as we can see.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Moleko.
Thank you, Madam. I think in terms of Lesotho, we are beyond policies and planning. we are actually at implementation stage. And I think I alluded to the fact that we, with South Africa, we have a treaty called the Lesotho Highlands Water Treaty, where we are building a climate resilient infrastructure for provision of water to the biggest economic hub in Africa, which I believe is the Gauteng region, where Johannesburg is. Currently, we are giving about 8 million people water in the region. And the infrastructure we are building is multi-purpose. According to the treaty, we have to do potable water, we have to do the hydropower stations, we have to do agriculture, say large-scale irrigation systems, fisheries, and tourism. So we are currently at the second stage of that project. I think the second phase is about, just to give an indication of the figures, it's about $3 billion US, and it's currently ongoing. It will have also a pump storage of 1,200 megawatts, and Oxbow, which I mentioned earlier, 80 megawatts, but obviously we will be giving the power to South Africa, hence why I mentioned that we'll be signing an MOU in that regard. Also, lastly, we also have what I also mentioned, which is also a multi-purpose dam, Mahaling. It will also have a hydropower station, but it will be for the delivery of water to Botswana. So in terms of collaboration within the region, I think we are a good example of that. Lastly, Lesotho, being very small, occupies 3% of the Orange Sinku River water basin, which encompasses Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, and Lesotho, but it provides 40% of the water. I thought I would just leave you with that. Thank you.
Great stuff. Your last words, Honorable Matola.
Yes, thank you very much. I think from Malawi, we can say that first and foremost is to have harmonization of policies and also incentives. We are talking about harmonization of policies and regulatory framework, which is very, very important when it comes to that the policy is talking to each other as we are sharing the information and also sharing the experiences. We'll find out that the harmonization of these policies is very, very important. And also, to add on that is that we can have a deliberate affirmative action in these male-dominated aspects. But once we have affirmative action and also internship within the schools and also the utility companies, it will help us more in order to retain the much needed skills and transfer of this information to them, the young men and women who are supposed to work, but only to change our curriculum so that it can fit with what is happening today. What is painful is that our students, our curriculum is still the outdated one, where we are still learning how to bisect the frog, and we are not yet learning what is supposed to be done today. For that, we need to change our curriculum by bringing in the things which can really help our youth and young people. I thank you very much.
Honorable Pale.
Yeah. I think that, we think that the main issue is still transmission, interconnectivity between our country, among our countries, and as well as inside our countries, because basically, in our case, for instance, Mozambique, to have the grids connect from the north to the south is still a challenge. And also the quality of power that we can supply to the rural population as well. So to be able to have these projects, generation projects that can be viable, we still need a lot of, in terms of connectivity and a lot of finance. We are still struggling to get finance to be able to develop our interconnectivity within, not only in the country, but in the region as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Chikote, over to you.
First thing, collective responsibility to harness our resources that we have at hand as a region. Collective, so that we can harness the resources that we have. That is my message to all of us, holding the responsibility of leadership. Secondly, we need to continue uniting as a region to achieve the bigger picture, which is going to benefit our people. Also, I want to believe that we need to connect to each other. Interconnectors for the region have to be put in place. That in the event of situations, we are able to coordinate as a region. So all those projects that have been stipulated in our master plan, we need to implement them to enhance sustainable, renewable energy for our region. Teamwork, together, then we are going to achieve bigger picture. I thank you.
Wonderful. And lastly, Honorable Moyo.
Thank you for being last is very good. Three things again. In Zimbabwe, we have a shortage of 6,000 transformers. Our ability to produce those transformers locally is not robust. We need investment. But why are we losing transformers? Vandalism of these utilities is very, very high. And what are they vandalizing for? They are vandalizing for internal trade as well as trade within region, our region. And we appeal to everyone to say, if you are not producing copper like my colleague here in Zambia is doing, if you see copper from Zimbabwe, know that you have vandalized the energy supplier to our people. And when our people have darkness, rather than engaging in economic activities, they engage in other activities that are not conducive to our economic development. And lastly, we need, again, from our partners, I'm very happy that all the partners who are here fund research, they fund production of systems. One of the systems that I hope we can also look at in the Sadc region are appliances. Our appliances, we need to harmonize them as we integrate through our transmissions, through our Southern African power pool, and we are trading. Let's also look at our appliances across the region and be advised what we should be doing for energy conservation. We should not only be looking at energy generation, but energy conservation is also very important. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable ministers. I think this has really been an insightful discussion. But in regard to what has been done, I think we have made progress, but there's a lot that still needs to be done. Let's keep the momentum. Let's forge ahead and take Africa to where we want it to be in regard to sustainable energy. Thank you very much, our audience. I think our session would end here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Tabiso Florence Pape, for an excellent way to close the afternoon, my lady. I do believe it's safe to say that you are certainly the envy of many an African journalist after what you have just pulled off with 7 dignitaries in one session. But
Thank you.
all honorable, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the exquisite Tabiso.
Taking a photo.
I do believe that our photographers are on standby, my lady. They're just watching in the aisle. I'll just take this opportunity to remind you all, don't forget to smile for the camera flash. Well, as we observe the final photo moment as the photographers prepare themselves, allow me to take this opportunity to share a little bit of housekeeping, ladies and gentlemen. Your shuttles will be departing from this venue at 2 intervals, that is at 5:30 as well as at 6:30. At 5:30, it will be from here to the hotel. At 6:30, it will be from the hotels to the dinner, and you will be picked up in front of the GICC. The dinner is scheduled to start at 7 p.m. at Travel Lodge, courtesy of Botswana Oil. If you're not certain about whether or not you have an invitation as a domestic delegate, kindly just refer to your emails. I'm reliably informed that there are emails that have been distributed for invitation purposes. Otherwise, all international delegates are automatically invited to the cultural dinner. Once again, thank you very much to our closing session. We'll see you tomorrow morning for yet another session. Do enjoy tea and coffee as we await our shuttle pickups. Thank you very much. Congratulations to you. You have just succeeded with the first day of 2024 Sadc Sustainable Energy Week. From myself, Giselle, and Mudiri, it's goodbye until tomorrow. I thank you.